Hey y'all, hi. So I think a lot about something that I call to myself in my own mind, deprogramming the obsession with newness. As people who are sensitive to beauty, who love fashion, who might be absorbing a lot of imagery of people wearing clothes and styling themselves from social media mostly. Who are we kidding? Like that's where we're getting it, right? Absorbing from social media. Kind of our concept of how clean and impeccable, flawless, perfect, how new a garment or an accessory should look in order for an outfit to look pulled together. So much of the imagery we absorb has been created with brand new clothing. Brand imagery from influencers, fashion shows, everything. I'm over here making a conscious effort to counteract the imagery programming me to think that a polished outfit, a pulled together outfit, even a fashionable in some way outfit needs to also reek of newness. I'm over here doing my best to counteract that programming, basically by trying to stay aware of it. But the thing that I've found that helps the most is to gather imagery that helps to program something else. Today, I'm just going to share some of that imagery with you and kind of talk it through. And if we find it valuable, maybe it's something that I can continue to do here on my channel from time to time. If you like it and you're new, I hope you'll subscribe. I'm Hannah. I make content about beauty and fashion. Sometimes it's just me trying new makeup. And sometimes I dive kind of into the underbelly of what it is to be sensitive to aesthetics in the 21st century. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Okay, so one of the ways that imagery of an outfit can counteract the obsession with newness in fashion is to just be an outfit that would look good whether it was new or not. And here's my first example. I absolutely love this image. I love this outfit right here. The garments themselves, they might be new, right? They are not necessarily old. You can't say, oh, look, this is vintage clothing and you can absolutely tell. This could be contemporary brand imagery for all I know. I actually don't know where this image came from. I just got it on Pinterest. It could be in a catalog, but it doesn't reek of newness. It doesn't have that sort of slightly starched flawlessness of so much contemporary fashion imagery that if you really think about it, when you look at that slightly starched, flawless contemporary fashion imagery, you think if this garment was 6 months old, if this entire outfit was a year old, it wouldn't look like this. However, in this case, she could have bought it yesterday, but if these garments were 6 months old, if this entire outfit was a year old or 2 years old, it would still look this good. So by looking at it, I feel like I'm informing myself and informing my subconscious about which kinds of fabrics, materials, which kinds of cuts, the texture, the balance of color, which kinds of garments have that timeless quality. This is another one that I found on Pinterest, but I clicked through and learned that this woman is an artist. These are her paintings in the back. And I actually found reference to an article in which she's interviewed about the clothes that she wears. And she says she mostly wears menswear from slightly avant-garde fashion houses. So she is wearing like really expensive fashion-forward clothing, but clearly slouchy, oversized menswear. That being the case, what I suspect from looking at this is likely true, which is that these garments are made from quality materials. Cotton, linen, wool, fabrics that will wash and wear well over time and will look like this in 5 years, in 10 years. You know what I mean? You look at this image, it's like, oh, she could have bought that shirt 5 years ago and have washed and worn it 100 times since then, and this is still how it would look. I'm so inspired by this. This is exactly how I want to look. Like, I mean, the clothing, I would love to dress this way. This is exactly down the middle of my alley and makes sense for my everyday life and just makes sense for me in every way. You can't tell whether it's old or new. And newness doesn't necessarily do it any favors. Newness isn't what makes it or breaks it. Here's another image of the same artist wearing a slouchy V-neck, oversized cardigan, sort of same vibe, but slightly different silhouette. And this was actually the cover photo for the article about how she likes to mostly wear avant-garde menswear. So you can kind of see that same quality is continuous through these two outfits, even though this is a really different outfit. The other one was the button-down shirt. This is a sweater. She might even be wearing a skirt in this picture, but still there is that sense that the garments might even improve with age and might even make sense more for her life and for her look the older they get. Okay, going in a slightly different direction, because the ones that we've looked at so far were very me, right? That textured coat was very me. Those last two outfits on that artist were very me. But I think that this deprogramming can work even if you're not necessarily looking at outfits that are your own style. I think that it is important to cast a wide net. And also, I know not all of you have my exact style. So this to me is a great example of how basically a lived in, like garments being lived in, looking and feeling lived in, and somebody looking and feeling like very in their body can help to deprogram that obsession with newness. So this to me is incredibly put together. It's very stylish. It's really singing with a point of view. Everything's very balanced. I really think this is perfectly executed. I love everything about it. Even though I don't usually wear skirts this short, I haven't really been wearing many prints lately, although I do like both of these prints, especially the top. I likely wouldn't wear this exact thing, but I am so drawn to it and I appreciate it so much that I can easily allow it to help me deprogram the obsession with newness. Part of it is that there's like a vintage quality to the garments. I don't know if these garments are vintage, the top and the skirt. You kind of can't tell. That's the thing. You can't tell. They might be. They also just look so lived in. It really looks like this top and this skirt have been washed and worn, and they still look amazing. They're still handling themselves. They're still singing. These shoes also look very walked in, very lived in. They're cream colored. They're not dirty or torn up enough to be dingy. And I think it's partly probably because they're really well made, so they're aging pretty well. But they also don't look absolutely impeccably brand new. They look like they've been around. They've walked many miles, these shoes. I also think it must be said with this top and this skirt, these are prints that don't show dirt. So there's something about that too, right? Choosing hardy, washable prints and colors, something that you can sweat into and it won't necessarily show. Something I think about a lot when I'm choosing my own garments. And I actually think in this case that adds to perception of kind of agelessness of the garments. There's an unpreciousness about it that makes it transcend that sort of stiffness and sense of perfection and preciousness that comes with an outfit that needs to be new to look good. This is an image I really like. I've used this before in other YouTube videos about style, mostly talking about monochromatic dressing. This is on a lot of my Pinterest boards because it ends up being relevant to a bunch of different topics that I'm investigating in my mind or that I want to discuss on camera. In this case, we're looking at sturdy fabrics, hardy fabrics, denim, kind of by definition doesn't look new except for the occasional really sharp denim trouser. In fact, a lot of denim is distressed before you even buy it. It's designed to look like it's been around for several years or look like it is vintage. And then there's a lot of denim out there that's really great that is vintage. Denim on denim or this perhaps chambray top on denim pants. This to me helps deprogram the obsession with newness because it's entirely built out of a fabric that sort of thumbs its nose at newness to begin with and always has, basically, since its genesis in fashion. But also, this outfit kind of gives me the sense of two garments that someone's owned for a long time and worn separately, and then she's put them together for the first time today. Maybe because I've talked about doing that a lot when I've been referencing this image or I've used this image as a reference for talking about that, combining things you wouldn't usually think to combine. That's part of why I feel like this belongs on my mood board for deprogramming the obsession with newness. I feel like if I had this outfit, I don't really have pants like this or a shirt like this, but if I had this outfit or my version of this, I would always feel really put together when I was wearing it. And also I wouldn't feel like I had that sort of buttoned up, careful, temporary sense of polish that comes from something that has to be new to look good. It's broken in, it's comfortable, but it still has its own kind of polish. Okay, this is an outfit that I absolutely love, and it's the perfect example of a really specific way of deprogramming the obsession with newness that I observe mostly among my Gen Z cousin and her friends, which is basically the thrift shop aesthetic. And at this moment, I feel like it's specifically like an early 2000s revival. And I see clothes around that might be from the thrift shop and it might be kind of pushing that early 2000s, maybe even late 90s vintage revival button, but also could be new. Like this shirt definitely looks like it could be vintage, but it could also be new. Either way, it doesn't have to be new to look good. So whether it's new or not, it helps to deprogram, again, that sense of fear that something's going to age and then become trash in your wardrobe. Because this shirt, this kind of graphic tee, it could could age, it could even get dirty, get spots on it, get holes in it, and it would still do what it's doing for this outfit here. I kind of feel the same way about the skirt. This skirt could totally have come from a thrift shop. It could also be brand new. It could also have just come from a runway. Again, it is a print and a fabric that looks like it could handle wear. Like I was talking about with that outfit with the mini skirt and the long sleeve top. It looks pretty stain resistant. It looks like it could be washed and worn a bunch of times and still look brand new. It looks like it could be sweated in, it could be really worn and it would still look great, would still hold its shape. There's just no way of quite telling if this entire outfit is thrifted or not. And so it has a quality of breathing room about it, I feel, just a little bit rough around the edges. And therein lies, I think, a lot of the allure. So this image is an example of leaning even further into vintage aesthetic or the thrift shop aesthetic as the way of deprogramming the obsession with newness. This blouse is, I think, very obviously actually a vintage piece from earlier in the 20th century, right? Like maybe even late in the 19th century, potentially. It's very vintage, antique vibes, but still so beautiful. There are brands today that are imitating this aesthetic. Like Doen is trying to make blouses that have a nod to that. And even those blouses that Doen makes, even though they're new, I actually feel like they also help. That style, wearing something like that, also does help to deprogram the obsession with newness because they're designed to be washed and worn, to be worn even though they're wrinkled, to be worn even if you catch your sleeve on a nail and tear it and then have to mend it with thread. It still makes sense. That act, that life experience makes sense with the overall aesthetic of the piece. And I feel like that's true of a lot of what's going on in this outfit as well. I think this velvet blazer is probably vintage too. The shoes look kind of dusty, very clearly designed to last and last and last, to walk hundreds of miles. All of these clothes are going to look just as good as they do here, just as much themselves as they do here, are going to contribute just as much to any future outfit as they do here, today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, even 10 years from now, because that's just the nature of these garments and how carefully they have been chosen by this person. A really great example, I feel like, of contemporary styling of vintage pieces. Okay, I love this one. Look at this amazing outfit. This is sort of a special case. I feel like many of these images have illustrated a slightly different take on the act of deprogramming the obsession with newness or not being obsessed with newness in fashion. And this one is definitely different from any of the ones we've looked at so far. This outfit is so impactful. It's sort of cheeky. It's really simple. It's relatively quite simple, and yet it's so impactful. The impact is being made by color blocking, right? The bold yellow and the seafoam green, and volume. The pants being so voluminous, sort of spilling out over the shoes. The impact is also being made by the combination of formality levels. So there's a button-down shirt underneath the sweatsuit, then the high-top sneakers, Chuck Taylors, with the pants that they have like a sweatpant shape, but they look like they might be made out of linen or something. So there's like a play going on between formality levels, and still it's so simple, right? Just a shirt, a sweater, the pants, and the shoes are just like these four elements. You can see a stain really clearly on the shirt. That's part of why I picked this. I think it is true. You can kind of see the age in the garments without seeing the stain, but you can also see the stain on the shirt. This person clearly is not obsessed with newness. In the world of this person, as dictated by this fashion image, garments don't need to be new, don't need to be impeccable, don't need to be freshly pressed, don't even need to be freshly washed in order to be put together in a way that creates powerful impact. And that's exactly the kind of image that it helps me to ingest. It helps me to kind of reorient my thinking about style. I also love how the shoes are kind of unlaced. So messy, so powerful, so intentional. It's so cheeky. I live. Okay, this one's so interesting to me. I recently talked about the dresses over pants. Some of these images, by the way, are from a website called New York City Looks. I'll try to remember to link that below. I sourced a bunch of them from Pinterest, and then Pinterest sent me to that site, and I actually grabbed a couple more from that site, and it's definitely worth flipping through and a really, really great resource for deprogramming the obsession with newness, because a lot of people are looking fierce on that website. It's a street style photography website, looking incredibly fierce, wearing all thrifted and vintage things or some combination. Outfits, all of them with really strong points of view, a different kind of polish from what we kind of usually think of as being polished. But I really recommend that. This one's so interesting to me. And I think it's because so much here is utilitarian. The shoes, the jacket, and the jeans all have sort of a utilitarian visual quality to me. And without that layering piece of the dress, it wouldn't look very fashion to me. I mean, I think it would look great. It's not like she wouldn't look good. I wouldn't necessarily take notice, especially not like for a video like this, as a photographer, potentially like on the streets of New York, but that layering piece, that dress is so avant-garde. The point of view is so strong. There's friction between that and the other garments. And so I look at her and I'm like, oh yeah, she definitely works in fashion, is dressing in like a very intuitive, comfortable way. It's just kind of really about color and layering. And again, layering kind of formality levels, layering different pieces with different vibes, sheer layers, different lengths of layers. It has a bunch of pieces in it, this outfit, that are individually not risky in any way, but the way that it is all put together makes it feel edgy. None of it has that uncomfortable shine, that polish of the kind of perfect cleanliness that only comes from a brand new garment. It just looks so comfortable and lived in, and yet so very almost like insider fashion. There's really something about it. Okay, so those are all the images that I've collected because they're images of people putting garments together in a way that speaks of a rejection of newness as a necessary component in a fashion-forward outfit. And then some of them were just images of outfits that I feel like you can't tell whether they're old or new, the garments, and so that helps me in my mission here. The next several images are in a different category, and that's images of clothing and outfits and accessories looking really great, being very visibly lived in, worn, and messed up in a way that's kind of desirable. So here's an image of this ceramic artist wearing, this is actually the Ozma field pant, which I love. It's like my favorite pair of pants of the last 10 years of my life. I have them in the white Tencel Bowl denim or the putty color Tencel Bowl denim. That's my number one favorite pair of pants. I also actually have them in this dark denim color, and I don't wear them as often as I do the Tencel Bowl denim, but because I own these exact pants, this speaks directly to me, right? This is a really high quality pair of pants that's not inexpensive. I think they're like over $200. Yeah, well over $200. Usually I think of that something that is worth that amount or that costs that amount of money as being precious and being something that you want to baby and you want to kind of stave off the inevitable aging of the piece for as long as possible and kind of treat it with kid gloves. Instead, we see this artist wearing it to the ceramic studio and getting it so dirty that it's going to definitely need to be washed and kind of get broken in and beaten up and aged. But you can just see from the image, and I also know the feel of the pants, and it totally aligns, that they're just going to get better with age. And so it helps me reorient my thinking about the cost of something like that. It helps me remember that sometimes a high price tag on a garment like this is so that it will be made well enough to age well. And the point is that as it ages and as it starts to show signs of aging, it will get even better. It will become more itself. It will become even more something you want to wear. It's like a really helpful reframe for me when I feel like I've been steeped too much in imagery of perfectly pressed, totally non-pilly, impeccable clean, never been dirty and never been washed clothing. Here's a really polished outfit. It's a particular kind of style. I follow this Instagram account called On Parle Mode. It's basically like if the espresso martini aesthetic became an Instagram account. If an espresso martini was like on the other side of the phone running an Instagram account, it would be On Parle Mode. If the espresso martini became a human gathering inspo images, that's On Parle Mode. So this is from that. This is totally that. It's the espresso martini aesthetic, croissants and whipped cream at a cafe in Paris aesthetic, leather gloves, fur. I don't think this is real fur, but that's like totally aligned, and like a vintage Chanel purse, right? The thing about this image though is if you zoom in, I don't know if we'll be able to see it on the screen, but if you zoom in, you can see that the bag has really been through it. You can see the picks, the little flaws in the leather where it's like scraped on something or caught on something and gotten kind of irreversibly messed up just a little bit. It still looks very beautiful. That's the point, right? It still looks very beautiful and doesn't detract from the very high level of polish of this aesthetic, which I appreciate, but it also doesn't look falsely brand new, kind of inaccessibly brand new. It almost looks better, more authentic because it's so visibly lived in. Whereas when someone's carrying a bag like this, clearly a designer bag that costs a lot of money and it's perfectly brand new, it makes me think, like, how many of those do they have? How many bags at that price point do they have to be able to carry them so infrequently that they don't get visibly aged? They don't get kind of visible signs of age on them. And whatever the answer to that question is, that's way out of my capability and always will be. You know, I'll never be able to do that and have that. So it makes me feel sort of distant from the inspiration. A little sign of wear on something, like maybe this was the one investment bag this decade, and so clearly it's been through it. That makes me feel like I can actually be inspired by it. Okay, and lastly, this appears to be one of the Olsen twins going through airport security. Sorry about it. Just look at her shoes. They're clearly worn, and this is somebody who does have the finances to have like a new pair of shoes every day of the year, you know? But these, I feel like, look all of the better for the obvious wear that's on them. It makes the whole outfit just, I don't know, there's this balance of simplicity and fashion that I feel like the Olsen twins always have. Quality of materials, texture. We've got a sort of satiny fabric on the skirt or pants, whatever they are. The shoes are woven. The bag is leather and also has some woven aspects, but there's a lot of smooth leather. The top looks knitted. There's like texture layering going on. It's a casual look, like slightly thrown together, but it also still looks really polished. I love seeing these really broken in, well-loved shoes. This is the kind of imagery that helps me approach building a wardrobe, building my own outfits, dreaming about my own style and how I would like to dress and how I'd like to feel in my clothes. Helps me approach that whole project from a much more grounded and realistic place that actually aligns with what my real life is going to bring me. You know, I think that that's so important, especially because we're subjected to such an intense bombardment of images. And so much of what we see is actually unrealistic and isn't really aligned with the way that clothing looks when you wear it in real life, especially if you wear it enough to wear it and wash it a bunch of times and it starts to get broken in. So that's all I've got for you today. I actually had a lot more. I have more images, even like other genres entirely. I see now that if I were to continue on, the video would be too long. This to me is one of the most interesting frontiers of thinking about fashion, especially in the age of fast fashion, when there's a solution for our discomfort with the aging of a piece of clothing, which is just like buy another one, really working to overwrite that narrative that's being pushed on us or that solution that's being pushed on us, especially on this earth that we're burying under piles of trashy clothes that fall apart and don't age well. I think that this is really an important tool to have and way of thinking about the aesthetic imagination, right? Incorporating a relationship with the aging of garments that you own. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you think we might go next with this. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.